Welcome to Real Food Function. Today I want to bring you a short mobility routine that's specifically designed to help you open up the shoulders and the chest and also free off any sort of tightness that you've got within the hips as well. Now, as we find ourselves working from home, you might be sat at the kitchen table or you might be sat at your dining room table and you're finding that you don't have the usual support you have from your office chair. You're starting to get a little bit more rounded through the shoulders. You feel like your back's starting to roll forwards more. And you're generally more hunched over, and with that as well you're starting to get more tightness through the hips. So this routine is a short follow-along mobility routine. All you need is a little bit of space. You don't need any equipment whatsoever. I'm going to be coaching you through each of the different phases. It's probably going to take us around 10 to 15 minutes to complete, so if you don't have time to do it right now but you do want to follow the session, make sure you just save the link on this one and follow it along at your own time later on today. Okay, let's get into it. So the first part of today's session is all about how we release off the tightness through the hips. When you find yourself seated for prolonged periods of time, that seated position will make those hip flexor muscles get shorter and get tighter, and they can then start to pull into the lower back, which is where they connect, and start to give you discomfort through the back as well. So this first release, you need to go laying on your back first of all. Now we're specifically looking at how we can release the hip flexor muscles at the top of the thigh. So, laying on your back to start off with, you draw your left knee up to 90 degrees, and then from here, what you're going to do is just let your heel relax down towards your bum. That's your first point of call. Take both hands onto the top of your knee, so they're at the top of the thigh here, and then very gently, what I want you to do is push the knee into the hands, but I want you to use your hands to stop the knee from moving, so they're there to block the knee. Okay, so gentle pressure. Now normally we'd use around 20 to 25% effort. So if you feel like you're struggling to understand how much pressure that is, the best way to do that is to try and push as hard as you can, 100%. Relax back down for a second, come back into it. Go with around 50% effort this time, so 50% push, and again, just relax it back off. Now this time you're going to use half of that effort again. So that's going to bring you into around 25% effort. And what you'll find here is it's a very, very light push with the knee pushing into the hands. Now we hold it for around 20 seconds. Okay, so you're holding that push nice and consistently for 20 seconds. You'll probably start to feel the top of the hips into this part of the thigh just fire up a little bit. After 20 seconds, let your leg relax onto the floor. Draw up onto the right hand side this time. Again, relax the heel down towards the bum. Take your hands onto the top of your thigh, and with gentle pressure, so remember we're looking for 20-25% effort, start to push the knee into the hands there to stop the knee from moving. Now again, we hold this for around 20 seconds. Feel again the top of the hips just start to burn up a little bit, and then relax it back down. Okay, let's go for a second round on the left leg. So draw the left knee up to 90 degrees, relax the heel down towards the bum, take both hands onto the top of the thigh, and again gentle pressure. So it's 20% effort, holding it for 20 seconds. Feeling the burn into the top of the hips again as those muscles fire up. And let it relax back onto the floor. And one more time on that right hand side. Draw the knee up to 90 degrees. Let the heel relax down. Take both hands onto the top of the thigh. Start to push the knee into the hands. And again, remember the amount of pressure is about 20%. So not a big push. Hold it for 20 seconds. Try and keep that pressure consistent as well, so you're not pushing too hard or too soft as you go. And then relax that leg flat onto the floor. So by now you should start to feel the top of the hip flexors have just started to fire up a little bit. And now from here what we can do is start to stretch these muscles out more effectively. Okay? So, to stretch the hip flexors out, what I'm going to do, take my left knee onto the floor, take my right leg forwards and just make sure I'm in a really comfortable position. So If you've got quite hard floors, just take a cushion underneath your knee for a little bit of support. Also make sure your stance is quite wide as well, okay, so you don't want to be wobbling from side to side on this one. So when I'm sitting in position, I've got my right foot fixed on the floor in front of me, nice and tall through my upper body. What I want to think about now is how I can stretch these muscles out the top of the thigh. So I'm going to try and tilt my pelvis under, driving the hips forwards until I can feel the stretch running at the top of the left thigh. Okay, when you can feel that stretch, I want you to hold that position, keeping the chest up. Take your hands onto your knee if you want a little bit of support. And from here, to try and get the most out of this stretch, what I want you to think about doing is taking some nice deep inhales, so breathing as deep into your belly as you can. And then on the exhale, I want you to try and relax into the movement a little bit, okay? So it's a deep inhale, breathing as deep into your belly as you can, and then using that exhale just to relax into the stretch. So again, we're feeling that stretch running up the top of the left thigh, on the front of the thigh as well. We'll hold it nice and tall for the upper body, and then relaxing back out. Okay, let's swap onto the other side. I'm just going to change position so you can see what I'm doing. So this time my right knee goes down onto the floor. And again, if you need a cushion or a little bit of support, use that under your right knee. Start off in a nice tall position. From here, think about trying to drive the hips under until you get that stretch at the top of the thigh. Place your hands onto your knee. Take some nice deep inhale, exhales now. Just let yourself draw in as deep as you can into the belly. And using that exhale just to relax into the stretch. Let's work on 3 or 4 deep inhale, exhales on this one. Making sure you can feel that stretch running up the top of the thigh. Deep inhale. And use the exhale again to relax into the stretch. One more time, take that deep inhale into the belly. And use the exhale to relax. Okay, now we've worked on releasing the hips, we move on to the upper part of the back and the spine now. So this next movement is what we call a cat stretch, or a cat camel. If you've done yoga before, or if you've done Pilates, there's different terminology for this. The idea is we're trying to move the spine both through what we call flexion, which is where you round up towards the ceiling, and also extension, which is where you try and pull the belly button down towards the floor. Now when you work on this specific movement, it's all about the control, okay? So you're not trying to push up too quickly, you're not trying to lower down too quickly, you've got control of the speed all the way through. So as a starting position, I've got my knees around hip width apart, I've got the tops of my feet just planted on the floor for a little bit of support. And take my palms down underneath my shoulders and just try and spread my hands out as wide as I can to give me that support off the floor. Okay, the first part of the movement is flexion. So what we do is tuck the chin to the chest, think about trying to pull your back up towards the ceiling, feel yourself stretch out as you go, hold it for a couple of seconds at the top, and as you lower down, let your head draw up slightly. Now what you think about trying to pull the belly button down towards the floor, opening up through the chest. And this is extension now through that lower part of the back. As we go back up into flexion, let your chin tuck, let your back pull up towards the ceiling, keeping the pressure nice and stable through the hands, through the knees and through the feet. Pause at the top. And lowering back down, thinking about pulling the belly button down towards the floor, opening up through the chest, drawing the head up. Try and keep the arms nice and straight, so you're not letting them drop forward, you're keeping them nice and straight. And again from there, tucking the chin, pulling the back up towards the ceiling into your stretch. Hold at the top. And relax back into it. Think about the belly button pulling down towards the floor. And one more time, tucking the chin. Rounding the back up towards the ceiling. Pause at the top to get the stretch before you lower back down into extension, letting that lower back and belly button pull down towards the floor. Let the chest open up. And coming back to a neutral start position. Okay, very good. So now we've looked at opening up through the back. We'll move on to the shoulders this time. You're going to go laying on your back first of all. So, our start position is to lay onto the back. I've got my feet flat on the floor, I've got my knees bent as well. I'm going to take my hands down by my side. I've got my thumbs pointing up towards the ceiling and my arms are nice and straight. So for the first part of the movement, what I want to try and do is bring my shoulders away from my head a little bit. And to do that, I'm going to try and slide my hands down towards my feet and then keeping the arms nice and straight. I come up overhead, aiming my thumbs towards the floor behind me. So really opening up through the shoulders and the chest, bringing the thumbs down towards the floor, taking a pause, drawing the hands back down towards the hips, and again taking a pause at the bottom. So on this movement, if you feel like you can't get that overhead range, you might have a limitation through the shoulder or through the chest, just work with whatever range you've got, okay? So even if it's just up to here and back in, every time you do a repetition, you're trying to take it just that little bit further before you come back down to the start. Okay, so hands down by the side, pull the hands down towards the feet first of all. That brings the shoulders away from the head, drawing up and over, aiming the thumbs towards the floor behind you. Now let the weight of the arms sit overhead. This is open up through the chest, through the upper part of the back. You feel yourself coming into extension again. And you draw the hands all the way back down towards the start position. Okay, so nice steady repetitions. Hands down towards the feet, reaching up overhead. Again, let the weight of the arms just draw you down towards the floor. Take a moment to pause. If you want to get more of a stretch, open the palms up towards the ceiling to really let those arms extend out. Drawing it all the way back down again. And again from there, reaching up and over. Thumbs to the floor. To get that little bit more of a stretch, open the palms up towards the ceiling. Let the weight of the arms sit on the floor. And draw it back in one more time. Hands down towards the feet, draw up and over. Reaching towards the floor, let the palms open up. Let the weight of the arms sit on the floor. And then draw the hands back down towards the hips. Okay, so far we've looked at trying to release the pressure off in the hips. We've looked at trying to mobilise the back and the spine and the shoulders. So our next movement is trying to wake the muscles up on the opposite side of the body. So if your hip flexors and your hips are particularly tight, it normally means that your buttocks and your glutes have gone to sleep a little bit. So we need to try and fire them up and get them working properly. So we do what's called a shoulder bridge or a glute bridge. So laying on your back first of all, taking your feet flat onto the floor, just let your arms relax down by your side. What I want you to think about now is digging the heels into the floor. Okay, so you should be able to wiggle your toes a little bit off the floor. The majority of my weight is digging in through my heels. As I dig the heels down into the floor, I want to think about trying to pull my hips up towards the ceiling. Okay, so I'm digging the heels down, pulling the hips up. At the top of the movement, I've got a straight line going from my shoulders all the way through my hips to my knees. You might feel a little bit of a stretch at the top through the hips. You might feel the tops of the thighs just starting to work a little bit. Now the goal here is to connect the brain to the buttocks and tell them to switch on. If they've gone to sleep, you need to get that process going again, where you get the brain to tell them to work. So from here, what I want you to do is think about squeezing the buttocks, holding it, and then as you lower yourself down towards the floor, let the spine roll itself down, one phase at a time, going from the upper back down into the lumbar spine until your hips meet the floor. Okay, as we go back up again, I want you to wiggle your toes first of all. So again, the majority of the weight is through the heels. We're going to dig the heels into the floor. We're going to try and pull the hips up towards the ceiling. And as you go up into that position, I want you to think about squeezing the buttocks. Try and really clench them at the top. Hold it nice and strong. In 3, 2, and 1. Let the spine roll itself back down towards the floor, one phase at a time. Make sure you don't rush this movement and just drop the hips. Make sure you roll back down towards the floor. Let the hips reset at the bottom, and again, dig the heels in. Drive up, pulling the hips up towards the ceiling. Squeezing the buttocks at the top. Making sure you're trying to get them fired up. Now, if you've not done this movement before, it will take a little bit of time before you feel the buttocks working. You may also feel like the hamstrings on the back of the thigh start to cramp a little bit. Okay, the reason why that happens is because the hamstrings are trying to do the job of the buttocks. So at the minute, as you go up into your bridge, instead of the buttocks firing up and stabilising, the hamstrings are taking over. So they're taking more tension, and therefore they're starting to fire up and cramp. If you feel that happen, just give yourself a little recovery, straighten your legs out onto the floor, and then come back into it with just some half repetitions. So instead of going all the way up to the top, you just bring your hips up halfway, and again, bring it back down. Okay, let's go for 2 more repetitions on this one. Wiggle the toes first of all, dig the heels into the floor, drive the hips up, squeeze the buttocks at the top, keep it nice and strong, hold that position. Again, squeeze the glutes, get them fired up as much as you can before you roll the spine back down towards the floor. Let your hips meet the floor at the bottom. And one last time, dig the heels in, drive the hips up. Again, think about squeezing the glutes at the top. This is a strong position at the top. You don't want to be wobbling from side to side. You've got your hands there for support. And let the spine roll itself back down towards the floor. Okay, great. So far we've worked on trying to release the hips. We've done a hip flexor release. We've done a hip flexor stretch. We've also looked at trying to get some motion going through that spine. So we did the cat-camel stretch on the floor, trying to open and really get through flexion and extension. We've also looked at some shoulder flexion as well. So bringing the arms up and over, and again, working that shoulder range of movement, opening the chest up, and trying to fire the buttocks up as well. So remember, if those hips are really tight, the chances are the muscles on the front are tight. It means the muscles on the back are probably weaker, or they're less switched on than what we would want them to be. So now we've looked at all those different areas. We're going to finish off with a little bit of balance work to try and really bring everything together. Okay, so again, all you need is a little bit of space on the floor. I'm going to start with my left leg first of all. Okay, so all of my weight is on my left leg. I'm going to try and hover my right foot just a couple of inches off the floor. So imagine you've got like a little golf ball under the sole of your foot. It's just there to hover. I'm going to draw a clock face going all the way around my body. Okay, so in front of me I've got 12 o'clock, and then 1, 2, 3, all the way around to 6 o'clock directly behind me. This next drill is a balance and reach. So the first part of the movement is to stand on that left leg, let that left leg take the pressure, just bend the knee a little bit to get into the movement. Now you've either got your hands on your hips or your arms out to the side for a little bit of support, whichever feels most comfortable. From here you're going to roll that little golf ball forwards to 12 o'clock, tap your toes on the floor, roll it back in and see if you can try and hover your foot off the floor. If you need to bring your toes down in between just to reset, that's fine. But do the best that you can to try and hover that foot off the floor. After we've gone to 12 o'clock, back into the centre, I'm going to roll out to 3 o'clock out to the side, tap the toes on the floor, and draw back into the centre. Next time we're going for 5 o'clock, okay? So as we go back, I want you to aim for 5 o'clock. I want you to open up through the hip so that you rotate. You tap the floor at 5 o'clock, and then you come back into the centre. So that's our 3 points. 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and 5 o'clock back on the angle. Okay, let's try 3 repeats. So it's 12 o'clock, back to the centre. It's 3 o'clock, back to the centre. Opening up to 5 o'clock, and back into the centre. And again from there, 12 o'clock, and back in. Remember to hold the foot up if you can. 3 o'clock, and back in. Drawing back on open to 5, and back in. Okay, one more time. Going to 12, centre, out to 3, and centre, back and open to 5, and back into the centre. Okay, give that left leg a little bit of a rest. It's going to be burning up now because you've been stood on it for quite some time. You probably felt like your foot and your toes were gripping the floor as well. So you might feel a bit tight in that calf area. That will pass over time. It's just your body getting used to balance and standing on one leg. Okay, let's go on to the right leg this time. So I'm going to take my pressure and my weight onto my right leg. I'm going to bend the knee a little bit to get into the movement and then hold my left foot off the floor. Remember, you've got a golf ball under the sole of your left foot, hands on the hips or hands out nice and wide for support. We've got 12 o'clock in front. Tap the floor, draw back in. This time we go out to 9 o'clock and back in. And as you open up, we go to 7 o'clock on the rotation and then back into the centre. And again from there, 12 o'clock and back in, out to 9 and back in, and then back on the rotation to 7 and back in. 2 more times, nice and steady. Take it out to 12, draw back in, open up to 9, back in, on the rotation to 7, and then back into the centre. And one last time, 12 o'clock, back into the centre, out to 9, back in, open up to 7, and back into the centre. Okay, shaking the legs off. So, we worked on a few key areas. We've worked on releasing the hips and stretching them out. We've worked on trying to mobilise the body through the spine, through the thoracic spine, and get it opened up. We've worked on trying to open up the shoulders and the chest. We've tried to fire up the buttocks, because again, if those muscles on the front of the hips are particularly tight, then it means that these muscles aren't doing their job as effectively. And particularly if you're finding yourselves in a seated position for prolonged periods of time, that is something that tends to happen. So trying to open up the hips is the first part of the process, but you also need to wake those muscles up on the back of the body as well to try and regain that control. And then the balance drill afterwards tries to bring everything together. So it gets the muscles in the core fired up, it gets the muscles in the tops of the thighs and the buttocks all working together to try and give you more control in the movement. I hope you've enjoyed the mobility session today. If you have any questions, make sure you drop a comment in the box below, where I'll be on hand to give you more guidance and give you more support. Look forward to more of these videos throughout the next couple of weeks. We'll be working on mobility drills to try and keep you moving as freely as possible and as pain-free as possible.